Israel and Iran don't know what the F they're doing. Those are the words of President Trump as the fragile truce between the two countries begins. Trump said he was especially unhappy with Israel's attacks on Iran in the hours before the ceasefire went into effect. Joining us to discuss the latest in the Middle East and President Trump's trip to a NATO summit in the Netherlands, former Ambassador Brent Hardt, whose 35-year career in government included top posts at the U.S. State Department involving Middle East policy and NATO. Brett, thanks so much for taking some time to speak with us. What do you make of Trump's comments this morning? Most of his ire seemed to be pointed at Israel, but he's also been posting on social media today that peace has been achieved.
Well, it's a positive step that there appears to have been a cessation of hostilities. But it's also true that this being the Middle East, and given the way conflict has evolved, as we think about the Gaza-Israel conflict and how it's been excruciatingly hard to ensure a ceasefire there, it's clear that this cessation of hostilities that has been apparently agreed to by both sides is fragile and will be difficult to enforce. So I think the president is speaking plainly as he does to make clear, especially to Israel, that he really wants to put an end to this at this time. So I think it's good to see that the president is using his power and the excellent relationship we have with Israel to pressure the Israeli government to make sure that they don't continue to seek additional gains on top of what's already been achieved, which is for them I think a lot that they've been looking for, and he wants this to succeed. So I think all in all, it's appropriate pressure that he's putting on.
What do you make of the fact that both Israel and Iran were willing to agree to this ceasefire? What do you think that says about the position the two countries currently find themselves in?
Well, I think for Israel, it signifies that essentially they've achieved one of their longtime ambitions. I mean, they have been seeking to take out Iran's nuclear capability for well over a decade, almost 2 decades, and they have long advocated for a military strike to do that. So I think Israel has already achieved a great deal from their own military strikes on Iran, and with the U.S. coming in with the bunker busting bombs, they've now achieved what has been a long-term goal. So I think for them, they should take the win and accept the president's focus on a ceasefire at this point. So they've achieved a lot. For Iran, I think it's kind of the other side. I mean, they are vulnerable. I think the Israeli strikes have demonstrated that they're a bit of a paper tiger. And while they certainly have the ability to cause mischief and create trouble throughout the Middle East, they're definitely weakened. And they're led by an aging 86-year-old supreme leader. There's a lot of unhappiness within Iranian society, and so their domestic situation is somewhat tenuous. And they've been struggling with Israeli attacks on their own, and to add the U.S. to that, I think would be disastrous for the government. So I think they're realizing that their options going forward are not great, and that their interests are best served also by bringing these hostilities to a rapid close.
As we were talking, we were showing images of the before and after photos of those sites that the U.S. attacked in Iran. There is still question about the effectiveness of those U.S. strikes. Trump says the Iranian nuclear program was obliterated, but there's some evidence that the Iranians may have moved about 880 pounds of uranium before the attacks. What do you think is the current state of the Iranian nuclear program?
Well, I think that's something that is unknowable to us. I mean, we will do the after-action reports, the battle damage assessments, but the reality is these are underground bunkers, and as much as we believe that we have caused significant damage, we won't know that, and there is no verification mechanism. The IAEA is not on the ground anymore, so we will have to use intelligence and try to try to determine what we can about the extent of the damage.
My next question is about the ceasefire. Do you think it can hold? I mean, I don't imagine the current regime in Iran is suddenly going to transform into a pro-Western secular democracy that accepts Israel's right to existence. Won't the mullahs who run the country see reestablishing Iran's nuclear program and its regional proxies as the best way to maintain their grip on power?
Well, I think that's a big debate that will go on from this strike. Obviously, a military action has a certain degree of finality to it, and the president's trying to bring this operation to a close. But the knowledge of how to build a nuclear weapon will still be there. A government could decide that they want to continue to pursue it because the lesson that they'll take from this is that the United States, is that the United States will continue to be able to threaten Iran's nuclear program. So they'll need to put it deeper on the ground, be more secretive about it, and move more quickly to ensure that that they can have a defense that will make countries less willing to attack them. So that's one scenario. I mean, it's also possible that other things can happen, that that there could be internal changes, that the leadership could decide, well, we've been after this nuclear goal for 20 years, and it hasn't brought us much that's positive. So let's see if we can, integrate better within the region with the Gulf states, integrate more effectively within the world. I mean, the president keeps talking about making Iran great, that Iran could be better integrated into the global economy and without sanctions. So there are two distinct paths that this could take. But that's one of the things we don't know. And when we at least had a diplomatic deal, we knew the time frame, we had inspectors on the ground, we could monitor things. So while the military option that we exercised seems to have had an impact, we won't know for sure what the long-term effect will be and whether Iran will jump back on the nuclear train.
Yeah, Trump talks about making Iran great again. The question is, with whom in power? You mentioned earlier the Ayatollah is 86 years old, probably at the weakest point of his reign in power. His nuclear program has been attacked. Proxies have been decapitated. Many of his allies in the military have been assassinated. You said it, much of the population wants him gone. It would seem like the time is ripe for a challenge to his power.
Well, there is a council that, in theory, would elect a new supreme leader. It's hard to. He's obviously taken steps that he thinks will preserve his hold on power, but I think it's fair to say that he is likely weakened. He's 86, so at some point, nature will take its course, and there will be a new leader. But there are also undercurrents within Iran of unhappiness and groups of people with economic influence, with political influence, who would like to take Iran down a different path. And they are obviously discussing things probably quietly and hoping not to be uncovered, but they've certainly been reaching out as well, I think, to Europeans and others to discuss opposite ways forward. There's always the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, the IRGC, which certainly has enormous power in Iran, and you could always end up with a leadership by the Revolutionary Guard, which would not necessarily be a good thing for the United States and for Israel. So at this point, there's just a lot out there that we don't know, and our ability to influence it is quite limited.
Yeah, I think about 20 years ago when there was a power vacuum next door in Iraq after the U.S. ousted Saddam Hussein, chaos ensued. Talk about the danger to the region if a power struggle happens in Iran.
Well, I guess it comes down to, what would the contending parties who are struggling for power, what would they need to demonstrate and assert that power? And, would there be international actions through which they could show that they are the ones who should be leading Iran into the future? And we don't know, again, if there's the Revolutionary Guard seeking to do that, they would have one way of exercising that power that would certainly probably lead to more tensions within the region. I mean, Iran has in the last couple of years lessened the degree to which it's isolated in the region. It has made outreach to the Sunni Gulf states, and I think there are many that would like to see that continue. But again, if there's conflict, if there is a sectarian edge to things, that could re-inflame the Sunni Shia conflicts that have been driving so much of the tension in the region for so long. So that will definitely be something that the U.S. should keep our eye on, and that our intelligence services certainly will be watching very closely as well in the coming months and years.
Let's talk about this NATO summit that Trump is attending at The Hague. Trump posted a screenshot on social media this morning of a message he got from Mark Rutte, the NATO Secretary General. Aside from the customary bootlicking we frequently see when European officials interact with Trump, Rutte did say that NATO members have agreed to the 5% defense spending levels that Trump has been demanding. Is that significant?
Well, it's absolutely significant. I mean, the initial 2% target was established in 2014 at the Wales Summit, and it was a struggle to get most NATO members to 2%. And obviously, President Trump pushed that strongly in his first term with some success. But what really generated additional spending was Russia's invasion, third invasion of Ukraine, when Europe realized that this challenge to sovereignty of Ukraine was not going to go away, and that they needed to step forward and do more to provide for their own defense and for the defense of Ukraine as well. So I mean, 5% is a big target, well above where countries have been. My understanding is that it's 3.5% direct military and another 1.5% of military-related expenses, which can be the rail systems, the road systems to move equipment to a front in the east. So most everybody is on board. I think the Spanish are a little hesitant to invest that much, but there is agreement on this, and I think that does represent a major success for U.S. diplomacy. Europe, I mean, we've all seen with the Ukraine war that we don't have adequate numbers of weapons. Even trying to keep Ukraine in the battle has been a struggle, so all in all, this is a very positive step forward, and a recognition that U.S. Engagement with the allies has led to a strengthening of the NATO alliance.
The war in Ukraine and Russia is kind of the elephant in the room here at this NATO summit. Of course, the reason, as you said, why Europe is willing to spend more on defense is because of Russian aggression. Trump keeps wanting to kind of both sides of this thing as he seeks to come up with a deal to end the war. But actually, it seems like fighting has only intensified. Are there any prospects for an end to this conflict?
Well, I think it's there are certainly no prospects to ending the conflict right now, because Russia, which is the aggressor in this case, has no interest in ending the conflict. Russia believes, especially because the U.S. has been reluctant under the current administration to provide additional weapons to Ukraine, that it's in the driver's seat, and that if this plays out longer, well, they can keep the pressure on, and hopefully at some point they'll be able to take over and dominate and put an end to Ukraine. And I think this is the real challenge for the administration, because the president rightly says we want peace, but peace is more than just an end to hostilities. I mean, we saw that obviously in World War II. But to achieve peace, the president needs to clearly understand why there's war in the first place, and that is because for one reason only, because President Putin invaded his neighbor, his sovereign neighbor, and refuses to stop fighting to try to take it over. And so, the only way you're going to convince Putin that war is not going to lead to the result that he wants is if we recognize that he's the one driving it, not Ukraine, not President Zelensky, and that we need to strengthen Zelensky, we need to strengthen Ukraine so that Russia draws a conclusion that they will only suffer more casualties and more economic devastation if they continue this war. And I think that's really going to be the next big challenge once we're able to move beyond the situation in the Middle East here. Is how does the administration grapple with that, and will they make that turn? I mean, if the president could bring the same kind of passion and fire he brought to his discussion of Israel this morning and put that on Russia, I think that would be a great step forward and would really have significant results for the situation in Ukraine.
Lastly, because of your expertise in foreign relations and foreign policy, I wanted to ask you about the consequences of this new U.S. approach. It's very transactional. The U.S. is not afraid to break norms or confront allies to score short-term wins. The U.S. seems to be saying we don't really need anyone else. We can go it alone with our military strength and economic power. What do you think are the potential pitfalls of that approach?
Well, I mean, the U.S. has truly benefited from the post-World War II global order that we created and we shaped, and whether it's an economic, military, or political order, these structures brought peace and stability to the United States and to the world. And President Trump comes from a more transactional world, that of real estate, where each deal is finite and discrete. You make a deal, somebody makes money, and then you walk away. But foreign policy, as I learned in my many years with the State Department, is all about relationships. And you build these relationships over time, so that when there is a crisis, when the United States really needs something, we can turn to our allies and our partners and say, "This is important for us. We need your support and help." And usually, even if countries have questions or doubts, they've been willing to go along with us to support us, and that has been very much to our benefit as a nation. But if you look at everything as a one-time transaction, I know the press is fond of talking about deals. Um, it will make the United States. It'll make it much harder for the United States to have the degree of influence that we have now, because countries will make a one-time transaction with the U.S., but there won't be long-term follow-up. And I think it opens a door to countries such as China, who certainly have the ability as well to cut deals and to make an impact by throwing money around. And I do worry a little bit that we are really creating a big opening for China to replace the United States as the partner of choice for many countries in the world, because we're kind of tossing aside 70 years of buildup with our relationship. So it is a different approach, and I think diplomacy takes time. And I mean, we saw 2 weeks ago, President Trump was in Qatar, and he was referring to the possibility of negotiating a deal with Iran on the nuclear situation. Suddenly, 2 weeks later, we're bombing Iran. Diplomatic deals take time and patience and persistence, and military actions are over and done with, but their effects are often hard to predict. I mean, if we think about our interventions in the Middle East and what they have wrought, when we went into Iraq the first time, it was a success, yes, and certainly a military success, but then it led to led Al Qaeda to decide it had to attack us, and then we had to deal with the terrorist threat for a long time. Then we went into Iraq a second time, and that led to the rise of ISIS, and then we had to go in again to defeat ISIS. So, I think it's hard to predict when you use the military over the diplomatic approach to things, what the long-term impact will be. And I think going back to the original point of our discussion, today's military action appears to have been a tactical success. What that strategic success looks like down the road, 5, 10, 20 years from now is hard to determine. I mean, we all hope that it will put an end to this nuclear program, but there's a lot of questions that will need to be addressed between now and then.
Yeah, what happens long term seems to be the big unknown here, not just in the Middle East, but long term with our European allies. When is the next time that we really need them to do something they don't want to do, and what's going to be their reaction when that time comes? For now, we're going to have to leave this discussion at that. Brent Hardt, Ambassador, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Drew. Pleasure.